Belt tubes give your garments staying up power while you have a comfy waistband. Now we know this waistband shape, and here's the garment that we prepared earlier. A tube is exactly the same as your waistband, except that it's going to flip downwards. So the waistband goes upwards, the tube is downwards, and of course is much narrower. To make the pattern, we just use our waistband pattern. If you use the nipped-in version, use your lower measurement, not your small waist measurement. Figure out how wide you want your tube. For me, it's 2 centimeters, and then add allowance. If you are on the sewing machine, please add 1.5 centimeters. It will be easier for you to sew this. Remember, the top of the pattern has a fold and the side has a fold. Just draw up the width of your tube. Now you can cut that out and have it as a standing alone pattern, or you can go straight to fabric and cut that on your fabric or on the salvaged waistband that you might have cut off from your garment. In my case, this is the waistband I cut off from my jazz pants. When I put the pattern over the top, we can see how much narrower that is than my pattern. It's not going to matter though, because I'm actively using the stretch at the belt tube area, which is a safe area on me to put any kind of elastication. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark off the width of my tube using my pattern and some chalk. And then I'll cut that directly. I'm going to be cutting through 4 layers, so it is a little tough. Just be gentle, persist, be patient. If you are cutting on your fabric, you might be using the same fabric you used for your waistband. It's going to be much easier, and you're going to have the same size of belt tube in terms of length as the length of your waistband. Always true up, make sure everything is in alignment. I also do a quarter check. Unfold your tube now, place those vertical edges one on top of the other, and you're going to take it to your machine, overlocker, in my case, or a sewing machine, to sew that vertical seam. It's just like the waistband. And now we need to mark the quarter points. So here's my waistband, centre back and centre front, and the quarter points. These are the pins that keep the edges in place because it's going to roll. This is our tube. Got the centre front and centre back and quarter points pinned. I've also got some staying put pins. And our garment, which we previously prepared, quarter points all marked. We're going to put this together before we sew so that it's all lying straight in our heads essentially, and there are no twists. We find the centre back of both bits, we find the fold bit, and we find the edge bit. The edge bits, of course, have to go together, the edge of your garment, the edge of your tube. And then we just walk that around so that the fold is lying downwards, the edges are all in alignment, there are no twists in that tube. At this point, you have a decision. You can actually put the waistband on and do it all in one hit. I don't recommend for sewing machine that you do that because the tension will be too great and the fabric will move. For overlocker you can. So I'm doing this video for the sewing machine. Right, we've got our centre backs all together. And if you look at the grooves on the side, that's your 1.5 centimetre allowance line. We aren't going to do the 1.5 centimetre allowance line. We're going to take our stitching to the edge. So if I point out for you, that little groove in the presser foot is where I'm lining up the edge of my fabric, so I sew it quite close to the edge. And then it's simply the same method we used for the waistband. We get our quarter points together, we clamp it with our thumb, and we stretch out the 2 layers, well in this case 3 layers, and then we sew it. Just remember that it's going to roll and you need to work through the rolls. You'll also notice that my left hand is behind and I'm using that to simply pull a little bit. I'm not pulling a lot because there's a significant amount of tension that I'm holding with my right hand. I need to stabilize that with a hand behind it. If I didn't have my hand behind that, it would probably slip out of the machine. I'd actually pull it out of the machine because there's that much tension. So here we go, find the quarter marks, clamp down with your thumb and stretch it out. Ease out any rolls and keep going with your close to the edge stitch. I believe I'm using my presser foot, the edge of the presser foot, to keep my line. We'll speed this up now just so we get around the remaining quarters. Oops, didn't unpick that join line pinning. Let's do that. And it's just the same as we get all the way around. Clamp down on your quarter points, stretch it out. Make sure your rolls have been eased out with your fingers. And when you've got all the rolls fiddled out, because it is fiddly, sew away. Same thing again. Find the quarter points, we're at the end, stretch it out, sort out any rolling and stitch. And remember, you start and end with a back stitch to secure your ends. The reason why I'm not is because I'm filming in an obnoxious colour so that you can see things, and I'm not actually going to have my finished garment done by sewing machine. I will unpick all of this and I will be doing my garment on the overlocker. Now don't worry about those little wiggles. They aren't going to matter. So long as you've got this stitched, the next stage is going to be so much easier for you. And here we are, we've got our waistband. Find the centre back. Line it up with the centre back that you've just got on your garment and your tube. Put it in place. Do a double check that when you fold it up, everything sits as it should. And now here, we're going to be stitching it at the 1.5 centimetre allowance mark. And that's going to completely cover what you've just stitched. So that you can see it easier, I'm going to flip it over so you can see the stitching. So when I flip this, you can clearly see that edge aligns with the 1.5. My stitching that I just did is not going to be interfering with where I'm now stitching. We're going to use the same methodology as always. We find the quarter points, we clamp them together with our thumb, and we stretch them out. What you'll actually see is that I've found my quarter points and stretched them out, but I'm also moving my hands to find, I guess, the 8th point. And I do that because it's just a little bit easier to handle. So that was 1 quarter point that I went through, judging by the pins. I find the next quarter point, put them together, clamp down with my thumb, stretch it out, and keep sewing on the 1.5 centimetre allowance line. See the hand switch? I've now got it at the 8th mark. It helps me with that tension. So the next quarter point, line them up, clamp with your thumb, stretch it out, I'm just finishing that quarter point. Okay, this is a clearer hand switch. Once I've got the roll sorted out, I clearly switch hands and put the back hand behind to hold the tension as well. Quarter points together, rolls eased out, and stitching away, back hand holding the tension against my front hand. Almost there. Stretch it out. Make sure edges are together and there are no rolls. I've again used the 8th mark to hold the tension. And here's the last little bit, sewing on the 1.5 centimetre allowance line. Remember the back stitch and yours. Okay, so let's look at this. You can see that yellow stitch is perfectly straight, so it doesn't matter that I wiggled over there. That one is the one that is going to be the seam, and that is what you're going to see when it flips up. So it will be perfectly straight. Now, sometimes there are some strange bingles, like, why have I got this lip a little bit larger? Don't worry about it. Okay, just go and try it on now and let's see if it's something to worry about. There's actually a lot of forgiveness in stretch sewing, so it may be nothing to worry about. Let's see. It's going to look like this. It's going to look a bit wrinkly. Don't worry about it. As soon as you stretch it out on your body, this is what it's going to look like. I'm very happy with the fit of this. I can't see any errors once it's on my body. The only thing I would do at this stage is I'd go back in and just neaten things up. You can trim a little bit off. Remember, the yellow line is what's holding it all together. And so just flipping that over, see, there's just a yellow line there, so that's fine. If I put my scissors over that top line of stitching and just use that as a visual for the trim line, that's all you're going to need. Just trim it back. Congratulations if you have now made yourself a belt tube. That will make your garment feel a lot more secure, and it's ideal for heavier weight garments. Stay with us for our next video where I show you how to put an elastic into the belt tube. I'm also going to show you how I sew the belt tube and waistband and garment all in one hit on the overlocker. And in that project, I'm going to be salvaging a waistband that has a drawstring feature, and I'm going to convert that into a belt tube with the drawstring feature. Until then, enjoy your comfy life.